hashtag live, just so I know you're there and you're watching. And many of you watch the replays, so please type in hashtag replay so I know that you've watched this video. This is about investing in property and creating financial freedom. This is for our freedom tribe. So if you want to invest in property, you want to create freedom, you should be watching this, so pay attention. But if you get offended easy and you're a snowflake, I suggest you switch off now because it's probably not for you.
My mate George here, he retired at the age of 37 by investing in property. Mate, I feel like I'm with royalty today.
I think George is a great mentor because he really does care. The George I know, I met him 3 years ago, he does care. That's why he does his work. So I can talk to you about cash flow and all those things. George is better at that than me.
Property guru George Markowski from Positive Property Solution joins us now. George, good morning to you.
How are you, George?
Okay guys, me and my team are about to go live, so make sure you grab your beverage of choice, sit down, and you're in for an amazing show.
Hello, freedom fighters. We're here tonight with the Positive Property team and we're looking at conveyancing tonight. So if you use the wrong conveyancer, then you're in danger of losing everything. So losing your life savings. Okay, let's hear more tonight. So Matthew and Harry, we have on board tonight. Welcome.
G'day, thanks for having us.
Yeah, fantastic. So say a quick hello. I'm just going to go through a few questions here with you guys, and then hopefully you can expand on those and we'll go from there. Sound good?
Sure, go for it.
And anyone watching, please let us know that you are watching live, just hashtag live, or let us know if you're watching the replay as well. Okay, fantastic. So what I'd like to know first is why do we use a conveyancer at all?
Well, should we give a little bit of introduction of what our backgrounds
Perhaps,
are?
yes. Give them an introduction to yourselves.
And then we can get stuck in, yeah?
Yes,
good. So my name's Henry Davis. I'm a specialist tax and commercial lawyer, and I live in Adelaide primarily. I'm based out of here, and I also deal with ASA-assisted companies, and I work for companies in Sydney. I'm also building South Australia's first skyscraper on North Terrace. So I'm the chairman of the property trust there. I'm also an Adelaide City councillor, and I'm also the principal of Australia Conveyancing. I also like long walks on the beach, and I'm trying to build a chicken coop this weekend. So a man of many talents, and I actually started off in the Air Force hunting submarines and essentially spying on China as a radar operator on the APC-3 Orions. So something I've noticed, coming up more.
That's quite quite the backstory there.
Yeah. That's the truncated version. But I do a few things, and my speciality is tax and commercial. But I did notice so many issues with my clients in setting up conveyancing matters and getting them through. And so I thought I would, solve a lot of those problems, which I can see coming up quite often. Matt works with me as well with Australia Conveyancing, and I might hand over to Matt to give a bit of an introduction.
Thanks for that. So my name's Matthew Kelly. I've been a conveyancer for about 20 years. So I was a conveyancer fresh out of high school, and have worked in conveyancing firms, legal firms. I spent about 7 years with PEXA, which is the Property Exchange Australia, getting electronic conveyancing up and running in Australia, and only in the last 12 months I've moved across to work back in private practice. So that's my history.
Yeah, so we're actually pretty lucky to have the expertise from Matt on board with us at Australia Conveyancing, given him the guy who bloody designed the entire system and how it's done now. And particularly Dan, who's not along with us tonight, and Emma Green. So there's 4 of us within the team who you'll be dealing with through Australia Conveyancing. But essentially, these are the guys who had a massive role to play in the actual creation of the software of the new system PEXA, which we actually might go through and talk about tonight. And if you're living in Queensland, there's a whole other system in Tasmania, I think. So there's a few other hurdles and issues that happen in various states. So now, very happy to take your questions.
Fantastic. So why do we even go through a conveyancer at all?
Yeah, well, basically what happened, is it used to be the case that property was owned by the title. So you used to have a piece of paper, and that piece of paper, if you held it, that entitled you to a plot of land. When you first came to Australia off the boat, you'd get 4 sticks and you shove them in the ground, and that was your land. Doesn't matter how big the sticks were, how far apart they were. However, as long as you could kind of see them, you just owned that land. So when settlers got off the boat, they would just, float up a river, find a spot with no sticks in it, and then chuck it in there. They would then, try and formalize that with some pieces of paper known as the title deeds. And whoever was holding the title deed owned the land, and that would normally be held by banks in lock boxes. Obviously, nobody has lock boxes anymore because nobody has title deeds anymore. So that wasn't the best system, because a significant issue that people had was actually verifying who owned what. Yeah, and what you had to do, so who put in the first sticks in the land, you had to prove that before iPhones, before anything else, before the internet. You basically said, no, I put the sticks in, so it's me. And then your twin brother or someone, Matt, would claim that he put the sticks in, and no, but his sticks were outside of mine, and so mine was inside. It was a very complicated system. So instead, what they did with the Crown land, rather than having this process, and mortgages actually, the saying to get the bad end of the stick, the wrong end of the stick is in a mortgage, they would actually have a long piece of wood, and they would break the stick off, and they would record your mortgage payments on an actual stick.
Really?
So very sophisticated technology back in the day. Now it's all done.
Sticks in your office?
Yeah, it's quite a sticking point. And so what they did was this guy called Torrens, and it was actually in South Australia. This guy called Torrens, a lot of it, Torrens River is named after him. He said, why don't we actually have a central system of management and control where the government will look after all of the different titles? And this was groundbreaking, exceptionally exciting news back in the 1800s, I think it was, where they had a central title which was managed and controlled by the government. And whatever the central title said who owned it, that's what it was. So therein born conveyancing, essentially, where you would have somebody who would manage that process through the government to change the title from one person to the other. And that central system needed administrators from the government and also from the private sector to administer those transactions. So that's what conveyancing came about. And now, instead of having a stick, I'll just show you quickly, a bit of show and tell.
Awesome.
This is the new stick. It's a USB stick. And this is actually a portal stick, which gives us access into...
Can everyone see that? I was just checking.
It's a USB stick. It's a little white thing.
Perfect.
We plug it into the side of the computer with a log on, and that log on allows you to change the title. And responsible persons, I mean, Matt's more responsible than I am, but responsible persons, that's up for debate. Responsible persons, as they call them, are able to affect conveyances. That's the short answer.
Oh, perfect. So any questions that anyone has, please type them into the chat and we'll try and get to them if we can. Otherwise, we'll just go through a few more. Yeah. Okay, fantastic. So what it is you're saying you handle is that basically the title deeds to the land, and you're making sure it's all legal and the right person has those deeds.
Yeah, we deal with that central authority, which is run by the Lands Titles Office here in South Australia. And we make sure that your property, that you're buying, goes into your name, not somebody else's.
Fantastic, because that's pretty handy, right? Yeah. And what makes you guys one of the best in Australia?
So a lot of conveyancers, and it comes from different streams. So conveyancers go through a TAFE course, and it used to be the case that a lot of lawyers did it, and there was a lot more responsibility placed on the lawyers in times gone past. That's then now moved to a new model, or a quicker model, or a drive-through model, where essentially the training was a lot less, and we're talking about the training requirements that conveyancers go through in order to transact your property, but they don't necessarily, conveyancers actually don't go through a full legal training. So I think that a lot of quality, I suppose, or there's a lot of periphery things that might occur, and there's a lot of transactions that occur around a conveyance that I think a solicitor can absolutely have an impact on. So one of those issues is that I felt like conveyancing clients would need a large number of resources in order to actually give a transaction, get it right, including legal advice, accounting advice, and conveyancers, and the real estate agent, and everyone had to try and communicate and talk with each other. But often the lawyer, being the most expensive part of it, would not be there. And you're not just going to brief a lawyer on every single conveyance. You really need a lawyer there if it goes wrong.
In the background.
Yeah. So essentially, I'm your emergency break glass response to things going wrong. Otherwise, a lot of the time, the conveyancing team, who really like Matt and Dan and Emma, they'll be your first point of call, and I'll be sitting there as the reserve troops to ensure that anything comes about.
Fantastic.
Between Dan, Emma, and I, we have quite a number of decades of experience, and having a conveyancer, I once heard someone say, is like wearing a good conveyancer is like wearing a seatbelt in the car. 99 days out of 100, it doesn't matter whether you're wearing a good seatbelt or not, but if something goes wrong, you really want someone who has picked up that issue before it's even raised its head.
That's right. A good way. I like that analogy.
They also built the bloody thing. So this is a... So you might not know this, but this is the major banks and the government actually got together to create this brand new system called PEXA. And it hasn't been in operation for all that long, really.
About 2016 in SA, so 2014 in Vic, so under a decade.
Yeah, under a decade. So like 6 years, what's that, 9 years total?
Yeah, it's the central infrastructure that all conveyancers and lawyers across Australia, except for Tasmania and Northern Territory. Yeah. Everywhere where electronic conveyancing is mandatory, it's the central infrastructure that everybody uses to communicate, lodge documents, pay monies, settle properties, everything.
And so this technology was developed in throughout the major banks and with the government, and now they're actually looking at, just like we did with the Torrens title system, using this system to export it around the world. So you've actually got the guys here who were involved in its creation, which is a major draw card because they understand it better than most.
Absolutely. And we've got just a quick question here. What's the difference between a solicitor and a conveyancer? You may have just answered a bit of that one, but.
So, do you want to?
Yeah, okay. Solicitors can do conveyancing. So a solicitor or a conveyancer can both do your conveyancing for you. Solicitors practice in all areas of the law, where conveyancers really just practice in property. So conveyancers really specialise in property. Like Henry said, it's good to have a
kind of like a GP compared to a specialist, yeah?
Yeah, that's the way I like to think of it. And I mean, it's very important to have a solicitor on the team as well, who can pick up when there's disputes and when contracts are falling over and things like that. You've really got someone to have your back, but at the same time, it's good to have the best of both worlds.
Yeah, and it means not having to go. And I think that's one of the things that we're losing a lot is in that conveyancing world, is actually having a full solicitor who understands all of the structures or unit trusts and different class trusts and everything like that, as well as litigation rights and difficulties. So we've lost that
real asset protection side of things as well.
Yeah, and I know that you guys work with Adrian Cartland as well, who's a specialist tax lawyer. But from the conveyancing side of things, having that person there to on hand and mitigate these types of things is something that I think is potentially lacking in the market. It's something that I'm looking to change.
Absolutely. And conveyancing costs different in each state to state, yeah? How much does conveyancing charge from state to state? Someone just written here.
So largely the professional fees in conveyancing are fairly similar from state to state. They're all, they don't vary too much. The thing that does vary from state to state can be the types of searches and things like that you need to apply for. So for instance, in Queensland, the purchaser is required to buy sometimes anywhere up to $1,000 worth of government searches. So that's not necessarily conveyancing fees, but it's fees that your conveyancer charges because they're just passing on that cost. So in Queensland, the fees could be quite a lot higher than they are in Victoria or South Australia, for instance. But pretty much from our perspective anyway, conveyancing fees are quite uniform. The fee that we charge is uniform across Australia.
Yeah. Okay. So you do every state.
We at the moment we work in Queensland and South Australia, and we do have
Okay.
aspirations. Yeah.
Are you looking at expanding?
Yeah, so the intention is that Australian Conveyancing will be able to deal with every single state, in Australia as a one-stop shop.
Fantastic. Even better. All right. So we've got another question popped up here. How do you know a good conveyancer from a bad one, and how do you pick?
You'll know when it all goes wrong.
You won't know before that, right?
Yeah, most of them are
That's
very like
your due diligence.
Yeah.
Some states have a professional development framework, like South Australia has a CPC. So if your conveyancer is a CPC, that means that they keep up to date with their professional development over the year. They're at the front of legislation changes and all that kind of stuff. So it's good to firstly make sure that they keep up to date with that. Find out how long they've been doing conveyancing for.
Yeah, it's the same with property. I always tell
like that.
it's the same with property. I always tell people, do your research on us. You'll find it and you're confident in telling them to do that if the research is good, right? Success leaves clues.
Yeah, it's one of those things, like lots of other things, that you really get what you pay for. We hear lots of horror stories of people going out getting cheap conveyancing off the internet, and it end up costing 5 times more than it would have if they just had a good conveyancer in the first place.
Yeah.
So how do you find a good conveyancer? Because we do everything on the internet now.
Well, a lot of it's by word of mouth, right? So you need to be able to find someone that you trust that has experience in that area, and it's about a proven track record. Yeah. So dealing with people that, in many ways, it's kind of like the first time you deal with anybody. So the idea is that, I know George very well. We've worked together for many years, and from a different side of things. And, we got chatting and having a chat about some of the issues that he's faced with a number of conveyances and things like that. And one of the reasons is that you don't also have that legal expertise in there and a really commitment to an ongoing group. So I actually personally, I love George's book, and I actually implement his model myself. So George's advice through his book has helped me to get about 4 different properties and investment properties. And I've recently got a new girlfriend, and we chatted about that last night and basically went through that entire
Beautiful.
system. So I actually do have a lot of confidence in the system that George and Christina and Positive Property have put together. And I actually
absolutely.
So I guess the benefits of that is I understand exactly what George is trying to achieve and how, and the offer that he gives to his clients, and also the way that he fast tracks his clients into buying property. A lot of the time you can sit back and actually just sit there and watch your deposit grow slower than the market is increasing in value, which can be a major challenge. So,
Fantastic. So what's the price difference between a conveyancer and a lawyer?
A lot. So if you went with a solicitor and a soliciting firm, they'd be charging $400 an hour. And so for what a conveyancer would cost, this is the reason why solicitors have moved away from actually providing this advice. So you might charge $2,000, $4,000, maybe $5,000 for a conveyance, as a lawyer sits there and reads all the mortgage documents to you and things like that. So what we've been able to put together here is bring the best of both worlds, having a solicitor on board as a break glass in case of emergency to make sure that everything goes well, but at the same time having an extremely experienced team who built PEXA to an extent, a bit of it.
Helped, assisted.
They helped, all that grand approach. So in that way, we've been able to put together a relatively straightforward and streamlined product, but then also have the controls in place from a solicitor.
Fantastic. We've just got a hello, Belinda Douglas. Fantastic to see you. Welcome to all the members watching and all the non-members watching. You're about to be members.
Probably a good idea.
Yeah. And these guys are here to help, really. So in terms of so what you should look for in a good conveyance, obviously we've been over a little bit of that. Is there any other advice you would have towards, or what happens, Now, I can only see Facebook users, so I can't actually see people pop up on here. It just says user, so I'm not sure. So what happens if you get in trouble with a conveyancer halfway through a property deal?
Yeah.
Is that in trouble with the conveyancer themselves or in trouble with the property? Just get you to clarify that.
I'm sure that you're always free to sack your conveyancer, I guess, and move to another one. Just bear in mind that if it's too close to settlement, there may be some things that need to be redone or re-signed that may cause issues with timing and things like that. And there may be out-of-pocket expenses that your conveyancer who you're sacking has already spent, and I mean they would be entitled to recoup those costs. But if you do get in trouble, you know, you can always pick up the phone to another conveyancer and see if you think that they're not doing a good job.
And worst case scenario is that you have a settlement date and you've paid a deposit, and if you don't settle on that date at the right time, you'll lose your deposit and you'll lose the property. If you're a vendor as well, you can lose the contract.
So that's what you don't want happening, especially in this industry. You work very, very hard for your money.
Yeah, and so then you've got to go through the whole real estate agent process again, delaying it. So, and it's funny, I was, you know, with the development I'm doing on North Terrace, it's a 183 metre tall skyscraper. And I was reading a book called How Big Things Get Done. And the costs of minute errors to you, and the costs of very little changes and very small things that you might not perceive, the costs to you can be astronomical. So in most circumstances, it'll be fine. In those kind of little circumstances, 1% of the time, even maybe less, they can have catastrophic implications. So I've run litigation, for example, where the conveyancer on the other side was responsible for finalizing the due diligence period. And they were responsible for sending and forwarding their client's instructions to finalize and confirm the deal. They didn't do that. And so my client then walked away from the deal because it was a day late. And we went to the Supreme Court arguing about what the definition of in 30 days, including today means. Yeah. So these things, the cost to the actual, it was a developer who was trying to purchase this. They ended up paying an extra $150,000 for the land that they had already spent a huge amount of money trying to do due diligence to construct and divide property. So that's quite an extreme example, but these types of long tail risks is what we call them, can absolutely happen from time to time. So in those types of circumstances, it's really important that you have the expertise and knowledge on hand to deal with them quickly. Just like if there's a fire, if you let it go, and I'm actually a CFS volunteer as well. Fought fire on Kangaroo Island.
Man of many hats.
I got a medal for it somewhere.
You want to bring it out? I know you do.
And so, you know, it's those types of simple decisions where if you let something get out of control, all of a sudden it gets massive. So the idea then, the service that I wanted to provide is actually have someone, and I will always be across your matter and overlooking it to ensure that anything does go wrong. Because
I don't think that anyone, to be honest, as an investor, reads all that paperwork.
Oh, hell no.
They don't know to be expected to. There's that many pages, hundreds of pages.
Yeah.
You have to really know what you're looking for when you're going through it, which is obviously we do. We can skim through things like that quite quickly, but someone who doesn't look at them every day, it would take hours and hours.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it does. And half the time you don't know what the words mean and even what sentence means because they've got words in it. You have to dictionary every two words. So we don't have much time left, maybe only a couple of minutes, and then we're going to have to go across to our members session. So we'll just have time for a couple more questions. So what major traps? Pardon? You want to stay? No, you have to talk to other people too.
All right.
We've got other people wanting to ask you more one-on-one stuff, so we'll go to that too. But what major traps or pitfalls of a property deal from a conveyancing point of view, what should the buyer consider? Which the buyer should consider?
I think a lot of the things that buyers should consider are quite well or taken care of in the positive property model. So having good finance brokers, having someone who's done their due diligence on the property, making sure that you can afford it, what the repayments would be. If you're an investor, whether renting this property out is going to even be appropriate, all those sorts of things, the types of things that we see, go wrong in conveyancing. But as I said, a lot of those things will be taken care of if you're
part of that group.
Can I say something else as well? Not even just from the buyer's point of view, but I've actually seen it recently. I've had a couple of clients that work in the defense industry. Macquarie Bank froze their accounts. And basically they got locked up and they couldn't actually finalize a number of deals. So something you can actually do as a buyer is go through the Form 1 of the vendor and to ensure that they have given you proper and full disclosure, because if they don't, you might actually have the ability to cancel that contract and then not lose your deposit and all this types of stuff. So your cooling off period, when that actually occurs, is quite a crucial time period. So on a number of occasions, I've had clients where they needed to withdraw from a deal for whatever reason. And you can actually go through the vendor's purchase in Form 1 statement and make sure that you're protected in that way and actually do that Form 1 discovery. So things like that we can actually assist you with.
I have actually read one of those.
Yeah. So there's a number of different tips and tricks. We can go into more detail tonight. If you had another couple of hours, I've got a whiteboard around here.
I know. Someone did ask how we get George's book here. Just your comment in there should be enough. One of our staff will contact you in regards to getting this. Have you guys got this? You do.
Yeah.
Good. All right, fantastic. We don't have time for, how can we learn more about this stuff? You can become a member and come on into our group in the next 5 minutes. All right, so we're going to actually leave you guys here tonight and say thank you so much for coming along.
Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Well, we're going to go across and meet our members in the other group. So I am going to love you and leave you all and have a good night.
Good night.